Hi guys, this is the Casual Fan. Now, the 2023 Formula 1 season is only a few days away. We've had the 3 days of preseason testing, and those 3 days revealed quite a few things. Now, it didn't give all the answers. Well, for that, we have to watch the races. But yeah, quite a few things were revealed, and these questions, well, they're surely indicating towards a more interesting season than what we had last time around. Will that happen or not? Who knows, but at least there are signs that the 2023 Formula 1 season is going to be a step up from what we had last time around. Now in this video, what I'm trying to do and what the aim of the video is that firstly, the video will be divided into two parts. The first part is where I will preview the 2023 Formula 1 season. I'll share what I feel is going to be the pecking order at the start of the season. And in the second part, I'll give my expectation of what I feel the 2023 Formula 1 season will unravel, as in how the pecking order could evolve, how the developments could play a role, how the limited development time for Red Bull or other top teams could be something that plays a major role in changing the fortunes of the teams or even the championship fight. So these are the things that I'll be touching in how I expect the season to unravel. And then after this will be the first part of the video. Now in the second part, I will give my predictions. Those predictions they are going to be on quite a few interesting scenarios. So without further ado, let's get straight to it. Now in the preview, first of all, I will take a look at the pecking order. Now in the pecking order, I will divide the entire 10 teams in a group of 4. Now in these 4 groups, I will divide these 10 teams on the basis of having commensurate pace. So in group 1, there will be teams with similar pace. Then I feel there will be a certain gap before the next group, and then a certain gap before the next, and then finally for the group 4. So for group 1, I have Ferrari and Red Bull. Now this will be the front runners. In my view, Red Bull is leading in terms of performance, at least what it has shown for now. So I will put Red Bull at number 1. I will put Ferrari at number 2 because, well, the long run suggests that Ferrari is struggling from tire degradation. It has improved the straight line speed. There is significant improvement on that front. But overall, if we take a look at the long runs, Ferrari struggled when you compare it. Even if we don't compare it with Red Bull, the general tire degradation seems to be quite a bit. Maybe it's setup based or maybe not, but at least for now, it's clear that Red Bull leads Ferrari on that front. So when we talk about the group 1, we have Ferrari at number 2 and Red Bull at number 1. Now group 2 is going to be somewhat interesting because according to Ted Kravitz, Mercedes is probably behind Aston Martin at the moment. I'm not entirely sure about that. At least for now, it does appear Aston Martin has a pretty strong car. But where will it fall in the pecking order? At least conservatively, I won't put it beyond the midfield. So if I give my opinion, I will still put Aston Martin at number 4. Mercedes is struggling. Let's be fair. The car struggles on the track whenever either Russell or Hamilton was driving. It's not bouncing. In terms of development potential, I think Mercedes is coming up with a major upgrade package in I think 4 to 5 races later. So there is potential that the team could see some improvement, but for now I think I'll put Mercedes at number 3 and Aston Martin at number 4. Now in group 3, first of all at number 5 I have Alpine. In terms of what the car has shown on track, to be honest, I'm not entirely sure where I would put Alpine because just like probably Mercedes, Alpine has struggled whenever it has been on track. The car bounces a lot, it does not look comfortable, and even drivers, at least from what we can see, they don't look that comfortable. But then at the same time, the team did a few long runs, and in most of those long runs, it was quicker than almost every other midfield team except Aston Martin. Aston Martin was quicker. If you take those things into consideration, Alpine should, I guess, fall in P5. Now Alpine did not do any run on low fuel. There was no C5 run, there was no C4 run, so it's hard to see how much the peak performance is there and how the car looks in those conditions. So for now at least, I'll put Alpine as P5. It's a bit of a gamble, I'm not entirely sure, but at least for now I'll put it at P5. Now in P6, I have Haas. Now the reason why I have Haas at P6 is, well, most of the time the fortunes of this American team, it coincides with whatever Ferrari does. Ferrari has shown improvement. It has looked good. Similarly, Haas has looked good. The long runs are quite good, and even in the performance runs, you could see that both Hülkenberg and Magnussen were quite comfortable with the car. There wasn't any difficulty or lack of balance whenever the car was out on track. Overall, it looks like a driver-friendly car. It will be interesting to see how Hülkenberg copes with it, because he hasn't been around for a while. But in terms of pace, the pace was there, and even the preseason expectations, since Ferrari is doing well, I will expect Haas to do well at the start of the season. So yeah, for me it will be in P6. Now in P7 I will put Alfa Romeo, because the car, at least it's more reliable than what it was able to do last season. If you guys remember, the last season featured Alfa Romeo breaking down quite a few times during the preseason testing. The car it fared much better during the races, at least in the first part of the season, and they finished 6th in the championship as well. But overall, the reliability was poor. This time around, the reliability looks to be much better. In terms of performance, it should be there or thereabouts with Haas and maybe even Alpine. But in this particular group, I'll put it at 7th. Now at number 8, I have McLaren. Now arguably the disappointment of the preseason test. McLaren is, to be fair, the car, it's an underdeveloped car, and it's not a car that is ready to be competing for races, to be very honest. The car doesn't look stable. It lacks pace, it lacks balance, it lacks a lot of things. McLaren admits that, and they have admitted that the first few races will be damage limitation. They are expecting to bring a major upgrade. How it works and it doesn't, I have no idea. But for now, this is me giving them a leeway when I put them in 8th, because I don't know if 8th is even good enough for McLaren right now. It might even be 9th or 10th, to be honest. 8th is just me giving them a bit of a grace, I guess. So yeah, at least for me, for now, I'll put McLaren in 8th. Now in P9, I will put, at least in my view, I will put Alpha Tauri, because the team and the drivers have been pretty open of how the car is looking and how much of an improvement or lack of improvement there is. The team was quite happy with the fast speed section improvement, because the car appears, at least it appears even on track, it seems to be more efficient in the fast speed corners. It wasn't the case in the slow speed corners, and just like last season, it does appear what the team has done is that it has accentuated what were the strong points, and on the other hand, it has not truly been able to work on the weaker points. So the car, which was stronger in the fast speed sections, it is even better now in those particular areas of the track, but the slow speed sections are still a weakness. Regardless, overall, I think the team it might be closer to P8, or might even make a jump to the group 3rd, but for now, I find it hard to put it above 9th in the pecking order. Finally, in P10, I'm putting Williams. Now, there have been a few headline times that have been put together by both Albon as well as Sargent. I don't see the team making a jump, at least for now, in terms of the overall pecking order. Now, there might be a few races where Albon is able to sneak through into Q2 or maybe into Q3 as well, because the gap is not too much. Regardless, even if that happens, overall, I think Williams is still the least developed car on the grid, and I will put it pretty much at P10 right now. Now, after sharing what I expect will be the pecking order, the second part is looking at how I expect the season to unravel. Now, when I look at the pecking order, we can see quite a few anomalies. Alpine is quite a bit behind in P5. I expect the team to close the gap to P4, primarily because it does appear that the team has not understood the car as much as other teams. To add to this, they have pretty decent level of testing and development time available. They can put it to use, and then they can start closing the gap to the front. Similarly, I feel McLaren, that a team that I have put in P8, I think the team will start closing the gap to the Group 3. I expect the team to make improvements. Maybe it will not find itself fighting for P4 this season because Aston Martin is too far ahead, but I do expect the team to make at least a leap in terms of where it finds itself right now and where it will find itself later. Now, moving from the midfield section to the front runners, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how Aston Martin as well as Mercedes develop their car. In terms of gaps between the cars, Mercedes and Aston Martin are not too far behind Red Bull and Ferrari. The gap is there, it's substantial, at least in the case of Red Bull and the two teams, because Red Bull will be struggling from a lack of development time, and Mercedes and Aston Martin have a lot of it. We might see the teams closing the gap. I feel at the start of the season, both Aston Martin and Mercedes might be trying to maximize as much as they can in the races, get as many points as they can, so that they can start targeting and maybe even cutting down the lead in after maybe a 6, 7, 8 race gap, because from that point onwards Mercedes will start developing the car aggressively. They're expected to bring developments from the 4th to 5th race. Aston Martin will do that as well, because in terms of having the development time, out of the top 4 teams, Aston Martin has the most of it. So overall, what I expect is that the gap between the front 4 teams is going to shrink. I don't know how much of an impact an Alpine can make on the top 4, but overall I feel Alpine might end up being the leading team in the midfield, while the top 4 teams will continue to jostle it out for podiums and wins. Okay, so the preview part is done. Now we'll jump right into the predictions part. In the predictions part, I've created a few categories and we'll make predictions on those specific categories. Now let's see how they fare. Without further ado, let's jump straight to it. Okay, so now when we talk about the disappointment of the season in terms of a driver or even a team, the thing that we look at is disappointment tends to come from expectation. So when we are looking at disappointment, what we look at is how much was expected from a particular driver and how much he delivered. When you think about those things, the name that pops into my head is Nick de Vries. To be honest, a lot has been made about de Vries coming to Formula 1 at 28. Many people rate him very highly. Will Buxton is one of the most vocal supporters of him. But overall, if I look at it, somehow I'm not one of the people who feels that he is going to be a future Red Bull driver. I don't see that. In his entire junior career, he might have success, but he's had success against questionable opposition. His Formula 2 championship was against Nicholas Latifi. His Formula E record is him finishing 10th or 11th in his first season. He won the title in his second season, but he was again 10th or 11th, something like that, in his third season as well. Formula E is very unpredictable. And sure, he won the title, but it's hard to say that he was the best driver in those 3 years. It's very hard. Now, this season, there are quite a few people who expect de Vries to be the leader of Alpha Tauri. I don't think that is the case. I actually don't think he beats Yuki Tsunoda this season. I think Tsunoda has improved, and overall, if we see the entire season, Tsunoda will be the one who will outscore de Vries. He will be the better driver out of the two. So if I talk about the most disappointing driver this season, I think it will be Nick de Vries. Now, talking about the most disappointing team, I think it's not even a debate anymore. We've seen what McLaren has done in the preseason. This is a continuous decline that the team is experiencing, and I fear it's going to continue. I expect the team to, best case scenario, finish 6th in the championship. And if that happens, I think it has to be a disappointment. The team was supposed to, join the front runners last year in 2022. We are in 2023 and the team is on a decline. And considering the legacy that McLaren had, this is just not the right trajectory that the team should be on. So yeah, for me, that is going to be one big disappointment this season. Okay, now when we talk about the most improved driver, I think it will be that driver whose perception at the start of the season was something else, but when the season ends, he's looked at in a different light. This season, if there is one driver that I think will fall in this category, it will be Esteban Ocon. Now, quite a few people, I don't think they have a positive opinion of Ocon. They think he's a good driver, nothing negative on that front, but overall they don't rate him very highly. Even last season when he beat Fernando Alonso, he outscored him. Of course, beating would be a different thing, but even when he outscored him, the detractors were still there. If you guys had noticed, Ocon did not feature highly or at all in one of the year-end lists of top 10 drivers by team principals. So when that happens, it shows that the paddock does not rate him very highly. Now this season, Ocon will be teaming up with Pierre Gasly, and by all expectations, it's expected to be a very close battle. In my view, it won't be a close battle per se. When I say that, I mean that there will be a definitive winner out of the two, and most probably, according to the trajectory that I've seen, I think it will be Esteban Ocon. The reason behind that is because since 2020, when he made a return to Formula 1 with Renault, he has been on an upward trajectory. 2020 was a season where he was pretty much outperformed by Daniel Ricciardo. 2021 saw him improve. He won a race. It was still quite competitive with Alonso, but Alonso had the edge in the end. Finally, in 2022, we saw even more improvement. Ocon was more consistent. His qualifying speed, I saw it make leaps and bounds improvements, because in quite a few races we saw him out-qualify Alonso on his last Q3 lap after trailing him through the entire weekend. So that shows a thoughtful process in place. This will be his 4th year with Alpine, and for a driver that has been with the team for this long, he knows the car much better than Gasly would, and I think he is tenacious and hardworking enough to make a difference. Gasly is a talented driver, and he's a hard worker as well. But I feel Ocon is going to edge him out, and he's going to edge him out considerably. It won't be a domination. Gasly is too good for that, but you can clearly see which one of the two is the better Alpine driver. Okay, now the most improved team. I don't think it's much of a surprise, because I think it's going to be Aston Martin. There is a high probability that Aston Martin finishes as it escapes the midfield, something that McLaren and Alpine wanted to do. I think Aston Martin will accomplish it this season. It will escape the midfield and it will join the front runners. And if the team is able to do that after the kind of season it had in 2022, kudos to them. I'm proud of them. I'm happy for them. I'm just excited to see what the team can do, because better than having 3 front-running teams, it's better to have 4, and if one of them has Fernando Alonso in it, expect magic to happen. So yeah, when it comes to the most improved team on the grid, I think I'll have to put Aston Martin in that bracket. Now, predicting a shock winner. If you guys had watched a podcast I did sometime earlier, I predicted Fernando Alonso to win a race in the 2023 Formula 1 season. I'm going to stick with that. I think Alonso will win a race this season. He might win more than that, to be honest. If all the reports that we've seen, if all the data that we've, gone through, everything points to a competitive Aston Martin. If that happens, I think Alonso will be able to at least win one race this season. So that's my prediction. I think he will win a race this season, maybe more. Now when we talk about shock podium, I think it will go to either of the Alpine drivers. Alpine is roughly the 5th fastest team on the grid right now. I expect the team to develop the car consistently through the season, and it will make improvements. I expect that, because the team is more centered and more structured with Otmar at the top. So yeah, I expect them to improve, and I expect one of the 2 drivers to, achieve a shock podium. If I have to pick one of them, I think I'll pick Ocon, because even last season he got a P4 at Japan, and he was very close to scoring a podium. So yeah, if he can score a P4 in that kind of circumstances last season, I think there is a probability that he can do much better this season. Okay, so the most shocking news of the 2023 Formula 1 season. Now, other than the scandals and whatever comes up later in the season, I'm not going into those. In terms of sporting shocks, I think Audi will announce Daniel Ricciardo as a replacement for Valtteri Bottas and Mick Schumacher as a replacement for Zhou Guanyu. From next season onwards, Audi is the brand will start taking over at Sauber, and they want a German driver. They want to see how good Mick Schumacher can be. So probably 2024 is going to be a season where they will screen how good he can be. He'll have a more stable surroundings to work with, and in Daniel Ricciardo they'll have a big name with the team, and he has experience of being a part of Red Bull for so long. I think this is the lineup that they will go with in 2024. Okay, now coming to the Constructors' Championship. I think the Constructors' Championship will have 3 contenders. It will be Red Bull, Ferrari and Mercedes. Now, in my view, what I expect is the performance of the 3 cars to converge as the season progresses. When that happens, even though Red Bull might have an early season advantage, I expect a team like Mercedes, with 2 elite drivers in Russell and Lewis Hamilton, to make the most of the car. At Ferrari, we have Carlos Sainz, and at Red Bull, we have Sergio Perez. Both of them good drivers, but they are not elites. This is where Mercedes will hold the edge. And over the season, I expect Mercedes to overhaul the tally of points that both Ferrari and Red Bull accumulate. Somewhere down the line, I expect Mercedes to overhaul, and I expect that the German team to once again clinch the 2023 Formula 1 Constructors title. This will be their 9th title in 10 years. Okay, now talking about the Drivers' Championship. If you want my view, I think for a driver like Max Verstappen, he needs to have a perfect season to win the title. Throughout the year, whatever advantage Red Bull has, it's going to reduce for sure. The difference in the kind of development time available for Mercedes or Ferrari or even Aston Martin is far more than what Red Bull has. Somewhere down the line, it's going to play a role. And if that does, I think Max Verstappen, the kind of season that he'll have to win a title, he needs to maximize and score as many wins as possible in the first half of the season. If he's able to do that, he'll need to play the perfect rear guard action in the second half, where he tries to extract maximum possible points with the machinery that he has at his disposal. He cannot afford to have too many reliability issues. He cannot afford to have too many DNFs. If he's able to do that, he will be able to prevail against both the Mercedes drivers as well as Charles Leclerc from Ferrari. In my view, I think Max Verstappen is able to have that perfect season. In the last 2 years, what he has shown is his ability to be the most consistent driver. He's arguably one of the fastest drivers on the grid. But more than that, what makes him stand out is his ability to replicate that kind of performance almost every race. If he's able to do that this season, which I think he can, then I think he will be winning his 3rd world title. So these are my views. What do you guys think? Do let me know in the comment section. Please like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching and see you next time.